Well, good morning, guys. I'm in the middle of another windshield washer tubing repair. This particular defect was a break in the plastic tubing down low right near the base of the reservoir, and so I had to take the reservoir right out. I'm going to show you a few things that I learned along the way. To undo this, you just pull off these two tubing access points and then take out the battery and the battery tray. The battery tray is held in place by 7 bolts. Seems like a lot of bolts to hold a battery tray in, but they serve dual purpose. Then, if you notice, you can't pull the reservoir out completely because of metal in the way overlying. You have to pull the reservoir down. You don't need to jack the vehicle up, but what you do is you go through the wheel well, take off these plastic snaps, and then pull the plastic deflector away, and you'll get at the base of the washer tubing. There are 3 electrical connectors there, one to signify low fluid levels, one for the front pump and one for the rear pump. You undo those 3 connectors. There's one bolt holding the reservoir in place and one plastic tab. Take those out and then pull the reservoir down and out. I used a vacuum extractor to get the fluid out of the reservoir so it wasn't as heavy. As it turns out, that wasn't critical, and I think you'd be able to pull it down without getting fluid all over the place, even if you didn't drain the reservoir. As it turns out, one of the bolts was so frozen I had to use my female easy out set to take this off. This special socket has a female left-hand thread in it, so it bites down onto the head of the bolt and then it spins off, even if a typical wrench can't get it off. Of course, when you do that, you damage the bolt irreversibly. Fortunately, I had a replacement sitting around, so I'll just throw the replacement in and toss this one out. Well, here's the most recent hole right here, and it was spraying water actually onto my battery tray, creating this rust, and I'm glad I've got it all removed. Now, one of the biggest challenges that I faced was to find a replacement for this tubing, and interestingly enough, many auto parts stores don't seem to be able to sell you exactly the same stuff. The place to buy this, and certainly the cheapest place to buy it, is at a hardware store, not an auto parts store. And this stuff is used in your garden for sprinklers, home sprinklers. And to match it up, it turns out that these little connectors that you buy at the same place will fit both the OEM tubing and also the replacement tubing, so you can splice in replacement patches. To slide this in, a little bit of silicone spray makes it slide a lot easier. If the tubing is too brittle, as this might be, then a small amount of heat from a heat gun will allow it to slide in. Just make sure you don't use a lot of heat, because you could easily melt it and create a secondary hole. This tubing in a hardware store is less than $10 for 100 feet, so it's well worth a trip there. So I've got another problem with this. This is the front and this is the rear. And when I blow on this, of course, it's patent. When I blow here, I get fixed resistance. So I've got some kind of a block or a kink either in my tubing or in the sprinkler system, and I need to sort out why. This is the one that goes to the back. So I'm going to walk around here and look at the back part first, and we've got a connection right here. I'm going to slide this plastic tubing off and see if my problem is solved. If it is, then I know it's in this, the defect is in this part of the tube. If it's not, it's in between. Alright, this is the wiper side, and this side leads back to the front of the car. This side is patent, and this side is still obstructed, so we've got to trace this back further. Okay, I found another connection point right here. And so I just slid this off. We're under the left rear bumper, and when I blow on this end, I get obstruction, and when I blow here, I get patency. And so we may be right at this filter, so I'm going to take this filter off next. Okay, this is looks like either a filter or perhaps a one-way valve. You notice there's a directional arrow pointing out the direction of flow, and it was hooked up correctly, and if I blow on either end, I get obstruction. And so our obstruction is right here. I'm going to investigate a little more as to what this thing is. Alright, I've taken this apart as much as I can, and the more I think about this is a one-way valve to try and prevent siphoning of fluid either way. And that'll help to keep the line full of fluid, so there's not a lag between when you ask for fluid at the rear window and when it gets there. Now I've slid off these 2 connector pieces, and there's a connection with a lip on either end. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this right out of the system and see if I can do without the one-way valve. If I really need it, then I can put one back in, but Otherwise, I'm just going to put it together and see if it works without. Well, I couldn't resist. I love breaking things, and recognizing that this valve wasn't working, I decided to tear it apart and see what's inside. So I took an awl and a hammer and I smashed it here and managed to get these two parts open. And inside I've got a diaphragm and a spring. And so fluid is allowed to flow this way when it overcomes the pressure of the spring, but won't allow the system to go backwards the other way. And of course that would prevent siphoning and might even help to prevent the kind of siphoning that might happen if, say, you're parked on a hill or if you have a leak low down near the back door, to try and prevent your washer fluid from leaking onto the ground, or worse, leaking into an area that might create rust and damage to other structures. In any case, the system seems to be working fine without this, and so I'm going to keep a close eye on the fluid levels and see how it all unfolds. Well, it's been a while since I've had water to the back window, and I'm not seeing any leaking or problems since removing that rear washer check valve. I've come to appreciate how difficult it can be to find small leaks with this system. So I hope this video helps you out with your repair. Thanks for watching.